Dear colleagues, we are starting the roundtable right now. That is also devoted to the law of Ukraine on the constitutional on the protection of the constitutional order, and in the sphere of religious organizations. We'll try to cover all of the aspects. And the participants of our roundtable are the head of the state service, Professor Viktor Yelensky, the Doctor of Philosophy in Political Science and Public Administration, the Deputy Head of the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine, Noel Kahun. It is really nice to see you. We also are waiting for Maxim Vasin, candidate of legal science as Director of International Advocacy and Research at the Institute for Religious Freedom. He will be online. We also have Volodymyr Biraga, the PhD in theology, Vice Rector for Scientific and Theological Work at the Kyiv Theological Academy of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. We also have got Tatiana Derkach, the religious publicist, co-founder of the Center for Religious Security. We also have got the priest Georgy Kovalenko, candidate of philosophy and rector of the Public Association of Open Orthodox University of Saint Sophia of Wisdom. And also Mr. Alexander Sagan, the Doctor of Philosophy professor, the head of the Department for Religious Studies at the Skovoda Institute of Philosophy of the National Academy of Science of Ukraine. And I would like to give the floor to the head of the State Service for Ethnic Affairs, Mr. Viktor Yelensky, and I would like to listen to his view of the problems and challenges that are in front of the law of Ukraine on the protection of the constitutional order in the sphere of religious organizations. I would like to thank all people who gathered today and who's interested in this topic. I would like everybody to speak more. I would like our experts to speak more. The thing is that around this law, we have got lots of myth. There are some experts that start directly that it is the law on forbidding the Orthodox Church, and we are saying that it is not about forbidding the Orthodox Church. They still continue coming back to this topic. I would like to stress once and once again that this law, it requires, in this case, it is focused on the order and prescription given to Kyiv Metropoly. It is just to exit, to take all the monasteries, to take all the educational institutions out of the structure of the Russian Orthodox Church, to take the Metropolitan out of the Holy Synod, the decision of the Synod that has been taken in 2017 that has linked directly the church to the Russian Orthodox Church, and also to decision, leading to decision that the annexation of the churches on the occupied or annexed territories. We do not ask anything else, not changing the calendar, not changing the language, not to become the part of the other church, not to ask about, not to ask the Moscovian Patriarchate to let them out. This law doesn't demand anything of that. I also would like to say that the Kyiv Metropoly, it has never, within this small communication that it used to have with the State Service for Ethnic Affairs and the Freedom of Conscience, they have never said that they can't go out of the structure of Russian Orthodox Church, that it puts a burden on the conscience of the people, of the parish representatives. However, it continues its fight for their right to stay within the Russian Orthodox Church structure. I also would like to underline that maybe today I would like to hear some arguments why Ukrainian Orthodox Church can't exit the structure of Russian Orthodox Church, why Kievan metropolis can't follow the prescription that has been given to it by the state service. What are the arguments with regard to the law that we are discussing today, about which implementation we're talking today, that it also puts the burden on conscience of Orthodox parish members, and how this law violates the international law regarding the religious freedom. I would say that this would be the framework that it would be truly useful for our today's discussion. Thank you, Viktor Yevhanovich. And therefore, I would like to give the floor to Noël Calhoun so that she tell us about her view on the law from the international perspective. I know that on the 9th of December, there have been these one more speech, and I think you can probably note a little bit about that, in particular with regard to the implementation of the law. Thank you for inviting us to this important discussion. We have got a separate perspective because we're looking at the international law on the fundamental rights, the human rights. And I think that this approach can be useful in Ukraine as well, because it is a common agreed amount of values that shape the fundamentals for discussions. Everything that the international legislation, European legislation on human rights, they should exist in Ukraine. And what is noted that with regard to religious freedoms and rights, what is interesting that the religious freedoms, they are really high. They have got really high level of protection in the international legislation. And this includes the protection of internal freedoms, our freedom of thought, of conscience, of religion, and also external freedom, the freedom together with everybody else to pray, to learn its religion. How Ukraine can multiply this right? What is written in international law? The limitations, I beg your pardon. It is stated that the state can limit the freedom of religion if there is a legislative purpose, and if this limitation is listed within the law. What is interesting in other with regard to other rights, you can limit them also if you have got the threat to national security. However, if we take religion, there is no reason like that, and therefore here arises an issue where, starting from the beginning, we have got this limitation that is listed in the law on the protection of constitutional order. It is based on national security. However, there are other reasons for which you can limit the rights. The rights on religious freedom, particularly civil security, morality, a threat to ethical issues, etc. Those limitations, they have to be proportional to the legislative purpose. Therefore, the state has to choose the lowest limitations possible in order to reach this legislative aim. And the burden of proving that these limitations, we do need them, that they are proportional, this burden lies on the state. Well, it is international standard, European standard. What is related to the law dated 2024, the UN experts, they noted that the law is stating the state security as the reason for the limitation of the religious organizations. However, at the same time, the legislators didn't describe the threat that is there and why those limitations are considered to be proportional. It's a proportional response. Maybe in Ukraine, maybe it seems to everybody that everything is clear. However, for me, the legislators probably missed the possibility to provide this information to the external world. Our UN experts also noted some wide formulations that are present in the law, which is like the Russian world, the use of which can have negative effect on the right of rights and freedoms. Right now, everything depends on how you're going to use it. Maybe in Ukraine, we need to implement this. You need to implement this law, in maximum according to international standards, particularly also to European standards, as they do provide the right for religion, and they also can support the state to win in the court of human rights as well. We did read the prescriptions of the state service. We did see, and we've noted that in those prescriptions, you do rely on those wide formulations as the Russian world in order to limit the religion organization, and also you were listed as well talking about some narrow issues, and therefore we need to think about the international standards there. If in the future, I don't know, we'll see, will it be there, will not be there. If you do have an opportunity to work more on this law, we can suggest that you send to Venice Convention, to Venice Committee, that is looking at the preparation of the legal acts, so that they go in line with the European legislation. This analysis can be really advantageous in terms of the correspondence to the standards and the implementation practicality as well. Ukraine is joining the European Union. You have reminded about our last report that has been last week. We constantly do work with like four times a year on the quarterly basis. We do have this official reports of UN, what is going on with human rights in Ukraine. And it is really important. It is an important source of information, particularly for the courts, for the international institutions like the European Court on Human Rights. And what I want to say is that we also have got lots of information on this situation with regard to the right for religion on the occupied territories, and it is really important to write about it, to remember about it, to talk about it, because we did note it's really harsh violations of the human rights in also the deportation, the torture of the priests. There's also the refusal to register in different religious groups. I did tell you in the break the interesting story in there, that it is really interesting that you can read online the decisions of the courts in Donetsk, and there is the court decision with regard to the retired lady in Donetsk who has decided to bring people together at her home to sing religious songs. However, she had a problem, or like an error, a mistake in there, that the Bible didn't have the official note of the religious organization in the Russian Federation. They have taken all the literature that she has, and they also put a penalty on this retired woman. It is a serious violation of the human rights, and those violations to remind us that the protection of the religious freedom, it has got the foremost line in the democratic societies. Thank you, Noel. I do hope that Maxim Vasily, who is right now online, he's connected. Maxim, hello. I would like to give you the floor so that you can tell us how this law is viewed and assessed by the international institutions. And this will be the addition of what we have heard from Noel Calhoun. The floor is yours. Hello, everybody. I truly thank you for the invitation, and I'd also like to thank the State Service and personally to Viktor Yevhanovich Zelensky for the organization of this discussion, because we can see that the State Service is quite open to the dialogue. It's open to listen to the criticism and tries to have this process transparently, the process of the implementation of the law, because I will give you the view of how different international institutions view this law. However, I will also know that some of the notes that we have received, they are related to the moment after the adoption of the law, and they do not view the current process, because we do have the situation when the state service have went to court with the lawsuit, and they noted the absence of the activity from the Kyiv metropolis towards the prescription implementation. So maybe next year we will see some new reviews on the law. However, before I start quoting some reports of international organizations, I would like to shortly give you several facts that I note in the context in which we have adopted this law. First of all, it is obvious that the Russian Orthodox Church, it appeared to look not like a religious organization, because they are trying to say that the aggression is should be there, and so right now we are not talking about providing the religious activity, however, for the protection of Ukrainian citizens from the activity of the Russian authorities. Therefore, I do believe that we did have enough fundamentals to forbid the activity of the affiliated organizations of the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine. It is quite obvious that this Russian Orthodox Church, they are completely under control of the Russian authorities, and they're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in order to have to influence on their conscience and view through the priests, who are also trying to raise the level of misunderstanding within this Ukrainian society. And I would like to know that, first of all, we're talking about the top management of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, because there are multiple local religious organizations that are completely pro-Ukrainian. They are helping to the armed forces of Ukraine. They do not have anything in common with the Moscow Patriarchy. However, the Russian Orthodox Church and Russian authorities, they are using the problems arising from this issue on the international arena. It is not the question that has appeared right now. They have started doing it from 2014 in the conferences in Warsaw, in Vienna, in the UN events, and just using different possible spaces to talk about it. Unfortunately, the top management of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, they did not show the clear their clear position on the issue, and they allow them to use the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in the interests of Russian authorities and Russian Orthodox Church. As an example, we can see that before this law has been adopted, the top management of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, they said that they have no relation to this law because they are not related to Russian Orthodox Church. However, after it has been adopted, and when they received a prescription, the top management of Ukrainian Orthodox Church, they refuse from implementing the prescription and provide a clear message to the Ukrainian society that they are independent and they are not under influence of the Russian Orthodox Church. Therefore, in the conditions of such existence threat to the Ukrainian state right now, the state does have the legitimate objective to interfere into the activity of this organization. I believe that this interference is foreseen by the law so that we can minimize the impact of Russian authorities on religious organizations in Ukraine, so that they do not interfere also in the internal affairs of Ukrainian churches. However, I also noted the notes from the international community. They are afraid that this can lead leading to the liquidation and also to the order to alienate property. Are they proportional to the legitimate objective that the state would like to reach? As of today, you have noted the report of the High Commissariat of the UN on Human Rights that has been published in December 2025, where they have noted that such an activity can be a threat to a life of the community in general, this dissolution of the religious organization, because it does require clear aim, and Ukraine hasn't proved that it's proportional. That Ukraine hasn't shown that something lower, smaller than the liquidation can, as for instance, the activity towards the people who are responsible for it, that they can be enough. Therefore, we are stating that maybe first the government of Ukraine or the law enforcement, they maybe had to open some criminal cases. Those activists who are spreading out the Russian propaganda and Russian ideology of the so-called Russian world. Apart from that, the report also noticed that there are problematic formulations in there that the top management, for instance, has been accused within the criminal case. It also can be enough to substantiate the liquidation. And therefore, there is a fear that it will lead that all religious communities will have to bear responsibility for the activity of just several people, for instance, their bishops, etc. And also we have got the fears that this formulation with regard to propaganda in Russian world, it is too wide, and it can also lead to unforeseen use of this statement that can also lead to the liquidation of certain religious organizations and also limit the freedom of talking about your religious views. There is also a note that this formulation lacks some narrow formulation, what is meant in which cases and so on. Also, they know that Ukraine forbids the activity of religious organizations that do have affiliation with the Russian center. And it also leads to a fear that many religious organizations can stop their activity without the proper assessment of their activity. I would like to say that together with the decision with regard to the affiliation of the Kiev metropolis, we also have the order where we list within this structure, like what churches are part of the structure of the Kiev metropolis. And according to the law, the second part of the Article 3, all those parishes also have to be forbidden in the through the court because they are also affiliated with the Russian Orthodox Church, as the top organization will be said as affiliated. Then also the next step can be stating that all of the organizations that have been listed, that where they do have within their charter the note about that they are part of the Russian Orthodox Church, if they do not take it out of their charters. So we have got lots of fears listed in there. It's linked that all of the High Commissioner is afraid that even the local parishes can also terminate their activity. The state service, of course, may not have this aim, and they may not use the law that widely. However, as of right now, I would like to draw your attention to how the international institutions are viewing what they read in the law and what they try to tell us that we shouldn't use it that widely in terms of in the conditions of the Russian aggression in Ukraine. Apart from that, the Human Rights Watch organization, they also say that, of course, we need to react. Ukraine needs to react to the threats that are staying in front of religious organizations, but it should be done through first of all the personal responsibility, but also to the communities, so they do not avoid this approach. So if you look at by this formal characteristics, you can also terminate the activity of the organization. With regard to European Union, within the report for the last year, there are notes that Ukraine is protecting the freedom of speech, and that those speeches related to hatred and they are really rare, and there were no violations of religious rights. However, if we look at the report for 2025 that has been published last month in November, the European Commission has stressed that Ukraine has to provide that this law that is prohibiting the activity of the religious organizations that are affiliated with Russian Orthodox Church, it should stay within the international legislation, including the practice of the European Court on Human Rights, particularly on local and regional levels. So once again, what is meant would be the local religious communities. And in the other document, this was the response of the European Commission for parliamentary meetings in August this year. Within the context of the implementation of this law, the EC has noted that they will evaluate the implementation of this law in the context of the religious authorities and who are they subordinated to, what has been connected or prepared together with the Venice Convention, and also with the principles of European Union with regard to facilitation of religion and the freedom of beliefs. So those are the notes and principles that are noted in many different documents, not only by the Commission, but also by the UN and OSCE. With regard to the Committee on Freedom, so it also doesn't put Ukraine in the list of those who are violating the rights of with regard to religious. However, right now they are also focusing on Russian violations of the law, where they are calling actions on the protesters. So Russia is once again in the list of those who are violating the rights. Also, we can see that in other documents, we've got the quotes of the UN High Commissioner once again, that they are talking about the threats. And I'm saying that, and it's a quote that we have got unproportional limitations. And therefore, the committee has called on Ukraine so that Ukraine keeps the international standards of human rights protection. But once again, we can see that the Commission of United States of America, together with Human Rights Watch, they do not exclude the opportunity to react towards the Russian aggression on religious organizations, but they are also saying that international standards should be kept, and in particular, that Ukraine should use the most narrow way of interfering into the religious sphere. And at the end of my speech, I would like to note the notes of the UN experts who have talked on the 1st of October, where we had also the High Envoy on the human rights and religion, Nazila Harena, and also on minorities, Nikolai Regrat, and other special speakers from the UN. They also noted that they focused on keeping the proportionality of interfering so that it wouldn't be too much. And they do believe that ideologically we need the substantiation of liquidating certain organizations, such as remarks about Russian world, that it's not enough, that it actually can stop the freedoms of uniting, freedoms of meeting, etc. However, apart from the creed, this note and that, it actually comes in dispute and contradicts with the UN High Commissioner, because they are also talking about the impossibility to individual prosecution of the bishops, etc., and the top officials. They say that it's also that it's also illegal. However, I do believe that it is not a persecution. It is the best way of fighting towards Russian interference towards internal affairs in Ukraine, and the Ukrainian Orthodox Church and any other religious organizations that have got links and relations with the Russian Federation, and it leads to the impossibility of using the church in the interest of the aggressor. Therefore, if the law enforcement institutions will look at those cases transparently and will follow the law in terms of the lawsuits towards those organizations, then I believe that Ukrainian Orthodox Church will have an opportunity to take this poison of Russian propaganda out of it, and they will be able to stop the activity that is supports Russian aggression and spreads out the Russian propaganda, if they understand that it can be a criminal case afterwards, if they do relate to incitement of interregional hatred. It seems to me that the individual prosecution actually corresponds to international standards so that they do not misuse their position. And therefore, when we're talking about the implementation of the law on the local level, it is quite obvious that those criminal cases, they could be a good alternative to this wide implementation of the law in the context of terminating the legal entities. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Maxim. If you allow me, I will just say a few words so that, first of all, to react towards the speech of or the analysis of Maxim Vasin. Really short, I'll be really short. Okay, we are talking that interference is not proportional and that the liquidation of the religious organization is kind of the last call. Look at their situation. Let's try to look at it from the human perspective. There is an organization, it does exist. You may not call it a terrorist organization. However, the organization that puts its aim, its objective to stop existence of Ukraine as a state, it calls for the genocide of Ukrainians. It wants to diminish its culture. And what does the Ukrainian state do? It does the research and it figures out that some part of religious communities on the territory of Ukraine is the part of those organization that wants to destroy the state itself. So the Ukrainian state doesn't immediately stop its activity. It doesn't prosecute any activists. What does it do? It just asks this community to come out of this organization that wants to destroy Ukraine. Is it proportional? Well, the state of Ukraine is not automatically closing the churches. It's for quite a long period of time tries consistently to convince this organization that they should come out, they should exit this organization that is trying to destroy Ukraine. Then also within the law on, we are talking about this Russian world really widely, but it does state that it will be, this information will be provided in details in the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. The Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine is adopting the resolution like that, and this resolution, well, in simple words, we're saying that if the priest is coming out and saying that we Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, we are one people, we have got one fate, we live in one space, then that's his beliefs. But when he's saying that we live in one space and therefore there is no place for Ukrainian statehood, then this order goes towards him, the order that is noted in the law. For more than a year and a half will be soon, none of the priests have been prosecuted or brought to justice within this particular article. We are also saying that in order to bring to justice the priests, we're saying about that it is not the fundamentals for the liquidation of the religious organization. It can become the first step for the liquidation only when this priest is using his religious organization in order to spread out this ideology of Russian world or to throughout the statehood. We had only one try to terminate the organization on those grounds, to the Muftia, the Muslim management from Crimea. Um, he was prosecuted in the legal way. We have to put this final judgment. You know that we have got the spiritual activity that has got an office in Kiev, so the court has only partially worked within the lawsuit that we have submitted. So when we are talking about this or the other article of law, we shouldn't forget that the last dot in this case will be given by court. And what collective punishment can we be talking about when each religious organization is viewed separately, and those 154 organizations that Maxim Vlasin has been saying, those that have been created by the Kiev metropolis, we have just said to them, we informed them that your creator is the religious organization that is affiliated with the organization that is forbidden in Ukraine. It doesn't mean that they can be liquidated only because their creator is the Kyiv metropolis. Now, for each and every of them, we can have the research like this and the same prescription. So once again, I would like to hear where do we really have got this gap that is making this law or its implementation inconsistent with the international standards that exist in the terms of the freedom of conscience. For instance, I do believe that when people are forbidden in public spaces to wear symbols that show that they are part of certain religions, I do believe that it's a violation of human rights, because the God has told me to go and baptize people throughout the globe, and they tell me that oh no, you have to not to show your cross. I believe that this is a violation, or maybe some state is saying that this showing your religious beliefs it contradicts with Republican views. The world did see the views like that. Then we can probably discuss those situations. But I would like just to even talk even more and discuss even more about this law. Well, yes, thank you. The law is not easy. The law is really, it touches upon a really delicate field. That is why we have got such a big focus inside the country and also external from the foreign countries. Furthermore, the law and its implementation, it's a new experience for Ukraine because we haven't seen anything like that. Ukraine hasn't been dealing with anything like that. However, the Russian aggression, the full-scale Russian aggression, that is a hybrid war when the aggressor is using all of the means against Ukraine, it actually puts this challenge in front of us when we have to deal with those things where we are the first ones taking the way. And the fact that we are discussing this law and how it should be implemented in real life, it means that we would like to show that and we want to with our whole heart to stay within the international standards. Because when we have been just elaborating the law at this moment, we had this decision of the Council on National Security. We did have the clear message that we need to prepare the law that will be consistent with the European obligations of Ukraine and our trial and us trying to join the EU. As in the report of Maxime, we had several times the topic of the so-called Russian world. I would like to give the word to Georgy Kovalenko because his speech goes with regard to the fifth article and the problems of its implementation. Well, the Article 5 is not only in NATO charters, however, also in the law of Ukraine on the protection of the constitutional order. And this Article 5 has drawn my attention because for some reasons, all of the people were concentrated on those affiliated, not non-affiliated. And even the resolutions of the Cabinet of Ministers, we had two of them with this regard. And all the mass media and all the public, they were discussing that. But for some reason, we are not looking at this topic. The topic listed in Article 5, the liquidation or termination organization basing on the motives of promoting Russian world. It appears to be quite complicated to find the definition within the national legislation of those ideology of Russian world, but it is there. It is on the website of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. But there is a problem because in this definition, they are saying that, just give me a second, I will find it, that this propaganda of certain, well, let me say it fully, the ideology of the Russian world, just the Russian doctrine that has gotten its fundamentals, Nazi, fascism, genocidal ideas, believe in the statehood of Ukraine and other states. And until right now, everything is fine. That has got the objective of widening Russian imperial space as the idea of Russian influence on national terrorism, occupation of territories, widening the canonical beliefs of the Russian Orthodox Church on the territories that are aside from Russian Federation. So in this regard, I immediately have got the question. So we are talking only about the violent efforts because there is this statement about the violent. So it's not only in this regard, but this hustle power, or also when it's working within the framework of so-called cognitive war. It used to be called also semantic war, and before that it was called the informative war, and for all the time it has been called the hybrid war. So it is a challenge and one of the things that we need to look at. Furthermore, when we come back to the Article 5, we can see an interesting formulation in there. The popularization of such ideology in any and or in any way and or in by any effort. Well, in fact, it is a quite wide formulation, any. It is not only about, criticism of the formulations, but also the ability to provide certain ways out. When we are conducting the expertise on the affiliation, we also need to conduct a research on this anyway. Then you need to show practical, concrete cases when we can say that this Mr. Zelensky has been talking about it when he's saying, well, it is not according to his view. And this is the way. So it should be legally noted in some legal acts. I have read the resolution as well. And it is not clearly stated in there. I think it is also the responsibility of the state service for ethnic affairs and conscious and the freedom of conscience that is implementing the law through certain prescriptions, through certain researchers, expertise, through some activities, because the view of those issues, it is the obligation of the state service. But in the resolution, it may seem that the person who will be addressing the state service. However, it is also listed in this resolution that state service should do it on its own. So it is its task to find those issues and to check if something like that is going on, and this checking the information that they receive from people, from other organizations. And with regard to the resolution, because it is really interesting in the resolution, and this 514, where, or it's 41, I beg your pardon. Yes, it's 541. There is an interesting issue in there that the use of religious organization for propaganda of Russian world, its activity, act, or the lack of activity. So in this case, inactivity, according to the logics of the resolution, but also one of the things that facilitates the propaganda of the Russian world. Then once again, there in the resolution, we have got a really good question. There is the link to other laws where we have got the definitions. And it, for me, it's really strange that we have got the note about the criminal code, a criminal administrative code, and not the criminal code. It seems that the name is almost the same, but it appears that it is not there. It is not there in the code. In the code of civil procedure, it's not there, but it is listed in the resolution. While in the criminal code, you have got this article regarding the collaboration. The criminal code directly links it to the law of Ukraine and the freedom of conscience. However, in the resolution, there is a link to a different document. It's an interesting thing, I believe. One more thing that I would like to note is the identification of this propaganda and ideology of Russian world. Well, the resolution is there for 6 months, and I think that we would like to see these state service initiatives, not only in terms of affiliation, but also in terms of this propaganda of Russian world. And also we have got this list, the list of signs of propaganda, where I can see that we have got the objection towards the existence of the states and statehood in Ukraine. But I do believe that also that we have got one thing that also is different. It's the right for autocephaly. And here comes the question how we can legally prove this story. It's the denial of the right of Ukrainian church for the autocephaly. Well, I did know a little bit about the informational war. I used to be the person who has registered to Church UA. It is even until right now the official resource of Orthodox Church. So at my home, this resource is blocked. However, it's open for the whole world. So in Ukraine, I can't see it. I cannot even check what Ukrainian Orthodox Church is saying, but in the whole world, you can read it. Or when the metropoly is going to leave this status, will we also have the issues with regard to the right for domains or the names that are listed in there? So I do believe that we have got the problems in this regard towards the sanctions to the person. There can be sanctions to the legal entity. And I have got the question, how is it possible that people who are lacking Ukrainian citizenship, they can continue to be the heads of legal entities in Ukraine, while the sanctions that the Council on National Security, they do not have it. So the sanctions are just, copy pasted from oligarchs, put towards bishops, and right now the person who can be prosecuted at some point, he or she has been exchanged, etc. It can continue being the head of the legal entity, and no problems will exist for this legal entity. Furthermore, we have got the situation in which these people, well, there are no mechanism of illustration towards those people. I understand that even within the religious organization, they do not exist. It is also a huge question. There are no mechanisms, the modern mechanism, not only, the legal ones, but also within the churches, they do not exist. And even more than that, and probably going to be the last, I have just looked at our registries, just looked at the Google Maps and checked the registers. Until right now, in the names of the legal organizations, we have got all signs of the propaganda of ideology of the Russian propaganda. It's the temple named after Alexander Nevsky or after Maturanov from Moscovia. And even until today, we have got the legal entities in Ukraine that are named by the markers of the Russian world. Is it also the basis? Well, it is not. It is not the basis for the lawsuits. And even praying to Ksenia from Petersburg. So you can see, uh, I'm not gonna talking about the double-headed eagles that also stay on the churches, on the buildings. We are not talking about sometimes they try to close it with some cloth, etc. If we're talking about the cognitive wars, if we're talking about these issues shouldn't be in the focus of the central national authority that is responsible for the religious policy in Ukraine. Why am I stating all that? I'm saying that those meetings like we have got today, those roundtables and other working groups, other expert councils, it is also the activity of the State Service for Ethnic Affairs and the Freedom of Conscience. I do not know the other national authority. And probably we also need to involve the experts, maybe the members of the National Academy of Science, and also the professors from the religious studies departments, theology. I don't know if this vertical is still over there in terms of the educational facilities, etc. It is still not there. And one more thing that may be even more complicated. Have anyone really conducted the expertise of the service texts that have been served during the divine service, the worship in the Orthodox Church? Because all the propaganda of the Russian world, it is there. It is also listed on the, for instance, we have got the second floor of the Assumption Cathedral in Kiev, where it has been, where we have got the ornaments and texts listed on the walls. with regard to direct propaganda of the Russian world, with what do we do with all those things? It has been done during the full-scale invasion. You may go and see. Well, thank you. Even inside the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, we have got a really harsh discussion with regard to this law, where the whole focus goes to Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And I would like to give the word to Volodymyr Bereza towards which discussion we have got within the and what this prescription has led to. Well, dear colleagues, I'm looking at the watch with some fear, so I will try to be within the agenda, and I will be looking at my notes. I would like to really shortly tell you how the situation or the reaction has been within the Ukrainian Orthodox Church towards the prescription that has been given out in July 2025. We will start with the obvious and probably even banal statement that Ukrainian Orthodox Church has never been ideologically united. And so we had different groups within the church that have been appraising and assessing its status differently, looked at its future differently, at its past differently. So it is just, the fact that is there. After the full-scale invasion, the situation hasn't changed. However, I do believe that the war has destroyed this balance between those groups within the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And as of today, this is an internal problem of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, where they need to find the internal configuration. As I can see, they are looking for it, for this configuration, but they haven't found it yet. So they are right now within this process of internal instability. And this prescription that has been in the guidelines have been provided by the state service was one more thing that's like the impetus that pushed them towards even bigger discussions. As a result, as of today, we can see several different positions within the church with regard to current status of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and also towards the guidelines of the state service. I can say that probably there are three main positions that we need to list that coexist within the Ukrainian Orthodox Church simultaneously. The first position lies in the fact that Ukrainian Orthodox Church is completely independent. It has cut off all links with the Moscow Patriarchy and the Autokephal Church. And so here comes the question how just to start the communication with other churches so that they would have this legal confirmation of their existence. So they, on the legal basis, they need to find how they can talk to other churches, the local churches. And well, of course, within this group, they can go through all those five things listed in there. They say that basically that they have conducted it by their council, their meeting. So this is the first position. The second position lies in the fact that Ukrainian Orthodox Church during the war lost its possibility to communicate with the Moscow Patriarchy. So therefore, there is no real connection and communication. However, at the same time, those who believe in the second group, they do say that we cannot say that they've got autocephaly because after we start saying this, it means that we are in schism. It means that we have cut this connection, that we are not linked to anybody, we're somewhere in the vacuum. And in fact, this is the threat of schism. This second position, it sounds like, while we do not have any connection with with Moscow, but somewhere it does exist because we do not want to have church schism. those people who believe in this second group, they believe that it would be easy for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church 4 out of 5 prescriptions listed in the guidelines. Their logic is that the fifth part is that we cannot do it on our own. We cannot cut all connections with them because it should be from Moscow, and it seems to me that I'm right now talking about it, but the bishops have never publicly came up with this point of view. However, inside of the church, it does exist. And the third position is that Ukrainian Orthodox Church used to be a part of Russian Orthodox Church and continues to be so that this council that they had in Theophania, that it has basically changed the practice in terms of the commemoration that they've got during the divine service, so that they are not listing the persons from Moscow. However, all of the rest, that in the long run in future, all of those orders will not have legal force, and they will have to go through the assessment of Moscow Patriarchy. And out of this third group, we've got this negative view on the state policy towards religion, and therefore the law of Ukraine on the protection of the constitutional order in the sphere of religious organizations. They believe that it leads to discrimination, that it doesn't correspond to the norms neither of Ukrainian nor international law. And from the point of view of the third group, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church should not follow any of the prescriptions, and it should protect its rights in the Ukrainian courts and then in the international courts. Well, it's kind of a scheme that I'm showing the diagram. However, basically the position of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church can be described by those 3 positions, but I also can say that there are some combinations between those 3 positions. I will not go in detail over here. However, of course, we've got the question, on the proportions. What is the share of those 3 groups? I'm not going to speculate on that because there is no clear reply with regard to this issue. However, I would like to draw your attention to this third negative view. You know that it has been said by the Metropolitan from Feodosia, and it has been supported and by one person, and we've got about 10 bishops that have criticized this view. So we cannot say that this third negative view is not really spread out. It's rather marginal, and therefore it is not lots of people follow it. And what is the share between the first 2 is a quite complicated issue. Why is it complicated? Well, from my personal point of view, my impression of the situation, we've got a problem of the internal communication within the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. These groups do exist, however, they do not have a constructive dialogue in between them. All of the people who are following this, they could see that in general, they only discuss it in social media, and very specifically when they are not naming each other, when they are just publishing the text on Facebook. And therefore, externally, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church cannot also show the consolidated position because there is no consensus inside. They cannot base on anything. They have got this division internally, and therefore we have got the situation when one groups inside the Orthodox Church are looking for the communication with state authorities. They even trying to talk to the state authorities. At the same time, the other groups are trying to stop any compromises. They are not talking to the state authorities. They're providing provocative announcements, etc. When we had the Metropolitan Volodymyr, we remember that Ukrainian Orthodox Church used to position itself that we have got different internal groups. We have got different ideologies, and it's a strength that we've got, that we are internally talking to each other, that we've got dialogue, and we are developing in this way. As of today, it seems to me, when we have got those huge challenges, external challenges stating and threats stating in front of Ukrainian Orthodox Church, it's actually a big minus. Because it is stopping or preventing from the dialogue with the state, and also it seems that Ukrainian Orthodox Church cannot really figure out what they want to do about the future, and therefore this internal disputes that Ukrainian Orthodox Church used to be proud of, right now I believe it's an internal problem. And it seems to me that when we're talking about the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, when we're trying to assess the situation and discussing the reaction of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, we need to take into account this very complicated internal structure. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Right now, I would like to give the word to Tatiana Derkach, and would like to hear from her what went wrong with this law, starting from this idea towards its implementation. What is the problem? Is it how it has been written, or is the problem with the implementation by the state service, or it's not readiness of the church to react to the obligations? Thank you. I would like to thank the State Service and Viktor Yurkanovich personally for organizing this public discussion. I do believe that it confirms that our society is democratic and open. However, I also would like personally this discussion to be also on the stage of the elaboration of this law, because we have seen the slides that there was supposed to be some working group that was preparing those offers with regard to the religious situation in 2022. As I have heard, our theological community, I'm not even talking about the experts who are not related to religious community, I had a feeling that when the state, and particularly when the People's Deputies of Ukraine, when they were providing the amendments to the law, they didn't understand what they deal with globally. And I would like it to be the situation when you do not only conduct those discussions, but we also reflect on our criticism. I am against this law starting from its beginning. I was the first person who started criticizing it publicly. Why I have received a very negative reaction of the society. I had to go through it emotionally, because it seemed that the only way to solve the problem of the instrumentalization of religion by the Russian Orthodox Church, it's the forbidding its affiliation organization in Ukraine. So we have got a contradiction here. On the one hand, we're talking that the aim of the law, we're talking that how it has been suggested, this principal scheme of solving the making the tool after the religion, because we do understand that there is those affiliated organization that has been actively involved in this instrumentalization. I would like to remind that I published a book. It's in English in here. It used to be also in Russian. How Ukrainian Orthodox Church, as a part of Russian Orthodox Church, systematically spread out the propaganda, systematically supported the separatist movements in Donbass. And it seemed to me that the state was supposed to follow this way. If we have got a crime, a concrete propaganda, then those people who they were involved in it, they should bear responsibility. As I see it, it was easier for the state to shoot at everybody and say that they are all combatants. So on one side, we've got the statement that we're talking that Ukrainian Orthodox Church should stop its affiliation with the Russian Orthodox Church, and it's stated as the main objective of the law. However, right now we listen to the initiators of the second reading of the law. They're directly saying that the aim is liquidation of Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Then we don't know whom we are supposed to believe. And then it looks that, well, we have got suspicions like that, that that basically this first step is just the way to liquidate this church. It was clearly understood from the first steps that they will not go out of the structure of Russian Orthodox Church. The colleague has shown clearly what is going on in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church during the last year when this law is in force. It seems to me that those movements, they have just got stronger. And it seems to me that the demand from the church to stop those links, it just contradicts with economic law, because they cannot choose the jurisdiction. Well, according to the non-religious organizations, they do have a right. They can come together. The territorial community can, for instance, select to whom they will subordinate. However, when we are talking about not secular, but churches, when we're talking about religious organizations, if the church does believe how it's built into the chain of the world orthodoxy, it's a part of their belief, and they believe that they are either graceful or non-graceful, then the state doesn't have the right to tell them, well, you have to stop this. Well, it's happened so that, in fact, they are. We have got this quite a big church jurisdiction in Ukraine. If we're not talking about the occupied territories, it's about up to 8,000 communities, part of which truly believes that the fact that their subordination to Moscow is a part of their gracefulness. And a part believes that they get access to global orthodoxy, and they can go to Romania and serve there, or to Bulgaria and serve there. And let's be honest, when the priest is coming to Europe, he is asked, are you from Onufria or from the contradicting Epiphany? And it's really painful for me, as a person who also believes in the Orthodox Church, to hear that. We have got almost pan-Orthodox consensus that Ukrainian Orthodox Church is a part of the Russian Orthodox Church. And this law seems to me it doesn't solve the issue. If the Ukrainian Orthodox Church announces that they are coming out of the structure of Russian Orthodox Church, then it means that they are either going into schism, or they need to announce autocephaly, and then it's fictionless. And I would say that in the history of the Russian Orthodox Church at the beginning of the 1920s, before the revolution, after the revolution, they did have movements like that. And then Moscow Patriarchy did believe that they are not going to make any harsh movements towards those structure that are not remembering the or commemorating the patriarch. And they saw that time we will get them back. So from my point, or otherwise, there is this third way. They are going to catacombs. So we have got the great experience when they're going to catacombs in Ukraine, Belarus, etc. Then if we are not monitoring on the level of the state those organizations, then we can say that the objective of uh, of the law and to stop instrumentalization of religious, it doesn't work. Plus, we need to understand what is Ukrainian Orthodox Church globally. They have reminded me lately that in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, they've got very big judaistic movements on the level of local communities. It's like there is no this third level of affiliation. So on the level of the communities, we can see in the case of radical implementation of the law, when people are taken out of registry and they will be illegal, we will see the renaissance of those movements. Followers of Sikhachev, Leontiev, there are about a dozen of those. And it seems to me that we will lose as a country in this regard if we do that. Therefore, what Vladimir has noted, that there are communities that clearly associate themselves with Moscow, and there are those who are trying to solve this issue. Unfortunately, I'm saying it up front that it's blocked. The issue of providing help in terms of arbitration, they do not have the alternative in terms of the ecumenical patriarch. So they do not have an alternative where they can settle in terms of the global orthodoxy. Therefore, I do believe that those communities of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, I'm communicating with them on the interpersonal level, those that who are volunteers, who are providing donations to the armed forces. I've talked to one lady who has got 4 sons who are all in the armed forces, and she is in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They are pro-Ukrainian, they're patriotic. Those that are on their level, they have made their choice, their civilizational choice, as we can say. Will there be for those communities the radical implementation of the law? Will it be the violation of their human rights and freedoms? I believe that it will be a value violation. I believe that uh, not, nothing would happen if we would take this law and provide it for the view of the Venice Commission. Then we could follow the obligations in front of our foreign partners. This is just in short, and because we are really lacking time. Thank you. Thank you, Titana. And the last but not least, I would like to give the word to Professor Alexander Sahan, whose report is based on the problematic issues of the relations between the state and the church. And we can see that the need for the dialogue inter religious, it's really emerging and urgent. Thank you. I would like to apologize that I am taking your time in terms of lunch. Truly beg your pardon for that. I didn't want to do that. It didn't depend on me. And just by reacting just one by one thesis to what Tatiana has said, while providing research of more than 580 years of Moscovian church, there is no canon that they didn't follow if the emperor told them to. There are many, many examples like that. Therefore, as of right now, we have got the top manager of this church, and several dozens of bishops, and they are citizens of the Russian Federation. Until we've got this situation, nothing will happen. They will continue staying there as a stone, and we will not be able to do anything. I would like to touch upon the informational policy. Almost all people who have been presenting in here, they have touched upon this problem. And while talking about the law on the protection of the constitutional order, we could see that there is a classical example in here of certain gaps in terms of the informational support of this law. And I would like to look at this problem a little bit wider, and how, given in the situation of the conscious war, this is the war for the conscious or mentality of different people in the conditions of this war, how we can improve, according to my view, or find an optimal model of such informational support of the relations between the state and church. First of all, within the in terms of the state policy in this regard. First of all, we had the issues with the view of the international community on this law. We did have some speakers talking about that. It is actually a good illustration of the fact that we need to change something, and what to change and how to change it. Let's think about it. It is not a secret that the Moscow Patriarchy and the political Moscow in general, they are conducting the war against Ukraine, particularly in the sphere of state-church relations. And right now they are also conducting attacks on this law. And as a contradiction to these efforts done by the Russians, we can see that it has been done by the civil society, first of all. I'm not trying to lessen the role of any state authorities, including the state service. Even the fact that we used to have the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy, but we have never seen the information policy in terms of the state and church relations. We could hear anything from them on any issues. However, if we talk about some explanations with regard to information policy, it wasn't there. Then we also had the Ministry of Strategic Communications. We also had in state information agencies. However, once again, as the practice reveals, when those people who were dealing with specifically with the state church relations in there, they were either changing, or there were create conditions so that they would leave the organization. So I believe that we should conduct this information policy on the international level. We have heard today the international level because it's the work with the international organizations, and Ms. Noel and Maxim Vasin, they have noted about it. And those reports and speeches that Maxim quoted, we can clearly see the Russian narrative and Russian view on this law. First of all, I was really surprised that international document has got this note. Then after the deprivation of the legal entity, they will take the real estate belonging to the religious organization. But it is not true. Well, it seems that like if they are renting the real estate, yes, they will have to give it back. But we have got this word about the confiscation in there. It is a small thing, but it is important. And no matter what they say in some discussions, there is nothing saying about the liquidation of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. The law clearly states that we are talking about the termination of activity. If we're talking also about the international level, it's the work with our embassies and consulates of Ukraine, and also with the embassies of foreign states in Ukraine, with representatives of international organizations in Ukraine. And in this regard, we value the current efforts of the management. Particularly, I would like to note the head and his deputies and some um, workers of the state service. However, the demand is there for this work, and we can even right now see that the embassies are directly talking to theologists so that they would explain to them the situation. And in some expert requests, we can see that they are lacking information, that they are looking for additional information, and we can then also certify the lack of communication with the international community. And in terms of the embassies also, we have got the claim that there is the gap in terms of the state religious relations. We can also say that those embassies, they can publish the articles. It used to be the case in terms of the state religious relations in the mass media. It used to be the case, but it shouldn't be according to the principle scandal and then when we are replying. No, it should be related to the principle of those articles, maybe some preventive presentations, etc. We also feel that there is a big need in the regular meetings with the migrants and refugees. The Sunday that I have been conducting with regard to this policy on the newsletter to different embassies. I used to do it. It used to be from the side of the administration of the president. However, this practice also has been widened when I used to work in the state committee on the national religions, etc. I do feel that there is a need in explaining the aspects of those relations, and I can also say that what we could offer so that those details were explained properly. And the internal national Ukrainian level, we also have got a huge problem with the communication. I would like to say that during the last 3 years, we have got not a big department, just 10 scientists. I could see the statistics. We have given 1,200 over that interviews to different mass media. What does it confirm? There is a huge demand in terms of understanding the state and church religions in Ukraine, and very often the journalists are lacking communication channels in order to get this information in time. And as of right now, we can state that basically the theology and religious studies is disappearing. The youth do not want to go towards the religious communication. And about 10-15 years, we will face the problem with the lack of experts who will be explaining, because they will have just the experts who will be able to explain everything, starting from the black holes in space and finishing up with religious studies. And therefore, we'll have the problem with lobbyists in terms of those explanations. And also regarding the information killers, as we call them, or those prepaid informational agencies in Ukraine who will, in communication with lawyers, we will have the subjective picture, overall picture in Ukraine that will show the distortion of the realistic situation, and therefore it is important that the prosecutor's office and other competent authorities, they would look at this situation. And I am stating that many informational lobbyists of the aggressor state, they should be closed. We've got Asperger, we've got Kazatsky, those people who are consciously distorting the information, and they are earning the money on that. And it seems to me that the country that is in the state of war, in the conditions of this consciousness for how the freedom of speech should have the limits in terms of, well, in the conditions of war, what I suggest, what we can do, it seems to me that we need to have the press secretary who will explain the work in terms of this policy, no matter how you call it. Well, of course, to value the efforts of the state service that is looking at the strategy and the informational policy. However, the technical work and the explanations should be given by the press secretary. We should have the bulletins in Ukraine and in English that would go on the weekly basis or monthly basis that would clearly show the new focuses, new trends on the situation that is constantly changing in terms of the state-church relations. Even today, we have started talking about the courts monastery, and I remember the calls from the mass media when the judge said that they wouldn't arrest the real estate and other assets, and we had to stress to people, well, read the information, analyze it, start thinking, because it was shown in the media that it was, just a defeat of the state service for ethnical affairs, and that all of the that there will be no termination of those legal entities. There were the state service tried to have this monthly newsletter. Well, it wasn't the state service, it was the Committee of Religion. But at that time, the demand wasn't there. There was no full-scale war at that time. And in the strategical perspective, we also need to think about concluding special agreements with such institutions as Znania, knowledge, the departments of religious studies, so that locally people also do have lectures on the explanations of those church and civilian relations. I'm not the one who's supporting the influence of the state on those relations. However, at one point, it seemed that informational policy, if it goes centrally, systematically, we could see that it gave the big success. For instance, in 2005, we have we started talking to people about the local church, and we have been able to raise the knowledge of people on quite a big percent. Of course, also I've got the moment here about forming the pool of journalists. We need to have those people there. Well, not the same people that used to be there, but we should have people in different authorities that would be dealing with state church relations. Sometimes we are facing the situation when particularly in the titles it sounds horrible, and we also need to not only to do something, but how to state the truth for what you are doing. I would like to thank all participants of the of this round table for this active discussion, and I hope that it will also lead to thoughts with regard to staying against the aggression and to provide that our organizations will not have the enemy